Now, when you first start your little base camp area, you need to start taking things into consideration. First and foremost, you need to think of a water source, and you need your camp relatively close to one. Now, I know most people will think lakes, streams, ponds, mud puddles. All those are good water sources, and that's part of the reason why I outlined having a notebook with you. That way you can make a map of your area. I'll actually have another video on this more specifically later. You can also use the paper for tinder to get a fire started, or if you have to, or you need to contact someone, leave a trail, something like that, you can always leave notes. Now, that being said, your first priority should be mapping your area. Beyond that, you can also use some basic snares for catching wild animals or people. I'm not sure YouTube will allow me to demonstrate that. Well, at least not the people traps, but I can demonstrate the small snare traps. Now, in the case of where I picked for my campsite, I picked it close to my water source. And what I'm talking about very specifically is this little vine behind me on the tree. Exactly right here. If I cut this vine, there will be some water in it. The plant will draw it out of the soil naturally, filter out any toxins through itself, and give me clean water. It might taste a little sappy, but hey. Now, your poncho, ironically, doesn't do me much good because everything's wet already. I might be able to use it to sit on the ground with. If it really come down to it, clear plastic works better, but this will work just the same. I can dig me a hole about a foot deep, throw the poncho over top of it with a little bit of greenery underneath it, and pretty much just put rocks around it and leave it. What will happen is the plant will, of course, draw in moisture because of the leaves and everything else, which means that there will be water condensed on the outside of the leaves, which means when I pull it up, there'll be water that will have dropped into the little hole, making a puddle for me to drink from. You pretty much, when you want to drink from it, you don't want to take your hands and dip in. You just kind of want to lean over and suck it up. In the meantime, this poncho, when it comes to actually surviving, well, it comes into a number of different advantages for me. One of the things you want to think about is having something that's fairly well camouflaged. The camouflage poncho is better, but as you can tell, this here matches the background behind me a lot better than the shirt I'm wearing. So if I really honestly need to hide, there's the poncho. Also, ironically so, at night when I want to stay warm, all that I need to do is dig me a small hole, start me a small fire in it, let it burn. This is especially good of a day because you don't want the light to be seen at night. You want to avoid stuff like pine or cypress or anything like that that'll create a lot of smoke unless you're trying to signal someone. And then once you got the fire good and hot and burning really well, you cover it back up with dirt, throw the poncho over top of you, and sit on top of it so that the heat comes up into the poncho and fills up around the poncho to keep you warm. Now, one of the things I need to mention is the idea of a flashlight. I know a lot of people out here think the flashlight is probably going to refer to going around and, ooh, I can see at night. No. This right here is for signaling if you have to signal someone, more so than walking around and seeing at night. The problem is people can see you, and even if you slap something on there, like my colorful little red lens, it doesn't do much to hide what the light looks like. I'll demonstrate this on the wall better when I get back. Now, the basic idea behind that little fire pit is, like I said, it gives you shelter. You can use it, honestly, in the winter too, if you can find something dry enough to burn. And what's going to happen is that all the heat rises up out of the ground and it fills up under the poncho. That keeps you warm. You might sweat a little bit, so you might want to be careful about that. Kind of shed a little bit extra clothing before getting under there to do it, because it doesn't leave a lot of room to breathe, so you still need the poncho to, you know, hood open to get some of the heat out, and even if the heat passes out, it'll pass out past your face, which will still kind of keep your face warm. The idea is to make as small a presence as possible as far as where you're camping at. So if somebody gets there, you need a spot maybe this big of dirt that's been peeled up and put back, and maybe a few cuts in a little vine behind me to get water. That's not a big sign of a base camp type of situation. So it leaves a very small imprint on nature, and therefore leaves a very small imprint for someone to track. Then of course, when you got to get to the whole issue of a knife, the one I have here isn't a particularly big Rambo survival knife. It's actually a cheap Ozark Trail knife with a fork and a spoon that I bought from Walmart. It cost me like maybe 10 bucks, and the blade on it is less than 2.5 inches. This is a tool. It's not so much meant to be a weapon, so I'm not trying to stab or shrink anyone with it. I'm trying to find water, cut plants, maybe skin a small animal. If I have to use this as a weapon, it can be done, but not exactly something I'm too concerned with. And as you can hear from the sirens behind me, I'm still not that far from the city. In fact, I'm relatively close to it. I'm actually maybe 100 feet from a hospital, and about the same from a local park, which is where all the woodland area around the local park that isn't used comes from. So, to get to the point on the vine here, I'll pick a smaller portion. And what you get is this here. As you can basically tell, it's going to kind of squeeze on it a little bit to get the water out of it. But there is water in it. Not a lot, but a little bit's better than none. And when you're talking about a survival situation, especially a escape and evasion type situation where a lot of the cool ninjitsu skills come in at, well, you always have the water on trees and stuff like this that you can kind of just lick off. Best bet is just to leave the tree intact. That way, like I said, you don't leave a lot of trail sign for someone to follow. Now, I perfectly understand that everyone's probably thinking, well, wait a minute, this is ninjitsu and I'm not wearing a shinobi gi. Well, let's just put it this way. Not all ninjitsu is based on wearing a black uniform. In fact, quite the opposite. A lot of your best ninjitsu techniques come from the use of disguises, blending in. And, well, as someone once told me, as well as written in a book, a naked man in an empty room can practice ninjitsu. Yes, I just plugged the sheet again. Now, the thing about it is, I can live out here like a rabbit foraging on wild edibles, and that's all fine. But when you're talking about being on the run, the escape and evasion stuff, what you're talking about is foraging as you go and making your way to a rally point or a safe point, a safe house, somewhere where you can get immediate aid. If you're dealing with terrorists or kidnappers or anything like that, this still applies. Your goal is to get away from them, which means while you're still fresh, while you still have calories in your system, body fat for your body to draw energy from, you need to book it as much as possible. You don't want to stay longer than what you need to take a quick nap, get up, and keep going. So I'm going to demonstrate how to make the fire pit and then a few other things, and I'm basically done.